She was lost at sea. The billionaire saved her life and changed his forever. Part 1. Chapter 1, The Storm. The sea was calm in the early morning. A sheet of silk, turquoise and glittering, stretched endlessly around the Celestia, Victor Ambrose's 220-foot private yacht. It cut through the Indian Ocean like a sleek predator, silent save for the rhythmic churn of the water at its hull and the occasional rustle of canvas. Victor, barefoot, stood at the bow deck with a tumbler of espresso in hand. The sunlight cast sharp angles across his chiseled face and painted golden flecks in his storm-gray eyes. He wasn't the type of man to be idle, but here, far from Wall Street boardrooms and the claustrophobic circles of billionaires, he allowed himself rare stillness. Sailing alone, with only the skeleton crew tucked below for now, was his indulgence, his escape. There was no entourage today, no photographers, no women in sequins pretending not to know his name. Just Victor, the open sea, and the slow exhale of a man who'd built an empire brick by brick and now sought the one thing that never bent to his will, peace. But nature, indifferent to money or ambition, had other plans. It began with a shift in the wind. By midday, the horizon had darkened like bruised skin. The sun vanished behind a curtain of thickening clouds. The crew surfaced, alert and coordinated, snapping into motion. Victor watched them calmly from the upper deck, the wind tussling his dark hair. He didn't panic, he'd weathered worse storms, both literal and metaphorical. Still, he moved toward the control center, his voice low but firm as he spoke with his captain. "Radar shows something nasty approaching from the west," the captain said, tapping the glowing console. "We've got a solid 4 hours before it hits, but it'll be ugly." Victor's jaw tightened. "Plot the nearest safe course. Increase speed. I want clear skies." A storm at sea was never to be taken lightly, not even for the Celestia. They shifted course, slicing through the water faster now, the yacht's powerful engines groaning under the sudden urgency. But by late afternoon, the clouds exploded. Thunder cracked across the sky like bone splintering, and sheets of rain lashed the yacht. The ocean turned wild, convulsing beneath them, waves rising like dark mountains. The deck swayed underfoot, and the once still horizon twisted into chaos. Victor braced himself against the railing. Lightning lit up the world in violent flashes. The sky roared. And then, something strange. In a rare moment of clarity between waves, Victor's sharp eyes caught it, a flash of orange amidst the grey. Small. Almost motionless. Floating. A vest. No. A person. "Stop engines," he barked. "Get the lights on that starboard side, now." A searchlight burst to life, its beam slicing through the storm, and there she was. A figure bobbing in the water, barely upright, clad in a bright orange life vest, her dark hair plastered to her head, arms sluggish but still moving. Victor didn't wait. In moments, a lifeboat was lowered. The storm made maneuvering almost impossible, but he didn't trust anyone else to do it, not for this. He gripped the controls with precision, guided the boat through the chop, and reached her. "Hey! Hold on, I've got you," he shouted over the howling wind. Her eyes fluttered open, panic flickering in their depths, but her limbs obeyed his voice. He reached down, his grip strong as steel, and hauled her into the boat. She collapsed into him, trembling, soaked, and shivering like a leaf. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He cradled her, shielding her from the worst of the rain as they headed back. Up on the yacht, the crew helped haul them aboard. "Get blankets. Dry towels. Hot water, Victor commanded, not letting her go. He carried her inside himself. In the plush warmth of the yacht's lounge, he set her on the long velvet couch and knelt beside her. Her eyes were wide and haunted, like she'd seen death. She tried to sit up, coughing seawater. "Don't talk yet," Victor said, wrapping a thick towel around her shoulders. "You're safe now." She blinked at him. "Why you pulled me out." "Yes," he replied, his voice quiet. "What's your name?" She hesitated, as if remembering how to speak. "Claire," she rasped. "Claire Wallace." Victor nodded, already memorizing it. "Where were you, Claire?" Her lips trembled. I was on a yacht. A party. It was docked near the reef, close to Hinaveru Island. When the storm hit, it flipped. Sank. I think I'm the only one who got out." His gaze sharpened. "You were alone out there?" She nodded slowly. "I'm afraid of water. Always have been." Everyone else laughed. "I wore my vest the whole time. Never took it off." That one irrational fear, that one piece of caution, had saved her life. Victor stood slowly, his mind already racing. He would notify the Coast Guard, alert the nearby islands. But for now, one thing was clear: this woman had survived something horrific, and she was on his yacht. He looked at her again, at the way she was trying not to cry, still gripping the towel like it was her last anchor. "You're staying here until we reach safety," he said. She looked up at him, startled. "But my hotel?" "No," his tone left no room for debate. "There's nowhere to go in this storm. I'm heading to the Maldives. You'll come with me. We'll figure the rest out when we get there." And then, for a moment, silence. Outside, the storm still raged. But inside the Celestia, Claire Wallace had been pulled from the brink of death, into the arms of a stranger who would soon change her life forever. Chapter 2, A Shadow in the Waves. The rain continued to hammer the yacht's exterior like 1,000 fists, but inside the Celestia, warmth and opulence surrounded Claire like a surreal cocoon. Wrapped in a thick towel and now dressed in one of the crew's dry sweaters and sweatpants, she sat curled on the edge of a cream leather chaise in the main salon, watching the rain streak the panoramic windows. Everything around her looked too beautiful, too polished, too surreal for what she had just lived through. Victor Ambrose stood a few feet away, pouring 2 mugs of strong black tea from a sleek, chrome kettle. He handed her one and sat in the armchair across from her, still barefoot, his grey shirt slightly damp, his sleeves pushed to his elbows. He looked like he could command boardrooms, or weather typhoons, with equal ease. Claire took the tea with both hands. They still trembled. "I don't know how to thank you," she murmured, her voice hoarse from salt water and panic. Victor studied her. Her voice was soft, yet carried a quiet strength. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red, but there was something luminous about her, a light that hadn't been extinguished, even after what she'd endured. "You don't need to," he said simply. "You're alive. That's enough." She stared into her mug. It was so fast. One moment we were laughing, music was playing, then the sky just turned. Everyone was scrambling. No one thought the storm would hit that quickly. He leaned forward. "Where exactly were you?" "We were moored about a mile off Hinaveru. It was a sunset party. Some resort guests, locals. I didn't know most of the people. I was invited by a couple I met on the island." She looked up, her voice faltering. "There were at least 20 people on that yacht." I saw someone trying to lower a lifeboat when the mast snapped. Then the deck just flipped. Victor's jaw tensed. Did you see any others in the water? No. I was thrown overboard and clung to a buoy for a while. Then the current took me. I don't remember how long I floated. I just kept drifting and praying someone would see me. He exhaled slowly, nodding. You're lucky. Extremely lucky. Claire gave a bitter laugh. Ironic, isn't it? Everyone teased me for keeping that vest on. Said I was paranoid. Her voice dropped. Guess being afraid of water saved my life. Victor's expression softened. Fear has its uses. Today, it gave you a second chance. She looked at him then, really looked at him. You were driving the boat yourself. He nodded. Couldn't risk missing the target. In a storm like that, you can lose someone in seconds. Claire swallowed. You saved me. I owe you more than I can ever. He raised a hand, stopping her. You don't owe me anything. She wanted to argue, but something about the calm steel in his tone silenced her. For a long moment, they just sat in the gentle hush of the salon, the distant rumble of thunder pulsing like a dying drum outside. Where were you headed before you saw me? She asked softly. Victor leaned back, his gaze drifting toward the rain-lashed window. To the Maldives. I wasn't planning to stop anywhere else. Her brows drew together. So you weren't near Hinavaru on purpose? No. I was farther south, following a different route. You were off course. Likely pulled by the current. She paled. So no one would have found me. He didn't answer. Claire sat still, the reality of it pressing down on her. Without Victor's yacht, without his sharp eyes, without sheer chance, she would have vanished into the ocean, a name added to a tragic headline, a body never found. What happens now? She asked quietly. Victor looked at her. Now, you rest. The storm will last through the night, maybe longer. We'll continue toward the Maldives as planned. When we reach the island, I'll help you get back to your hotel. But, my things, my passport, my phone, everything was on the yacht, she said, realization sinking in. I don't even have shoes. You'll have what you need. I'll take care of it, he said without hesitation. She frowned. You've already done enough. I can't just. You can, he interrupted, his tone final but not unkind. Until you're safely back on land and in touch with your people, you're under my protection. The word protection struck something deep in her. Not because she felt weak, but because she realized how vulnerable she'd been. Alone, drifting, unseen, until this stranger pulled her from the jaws of the ocean and offered her safety without condition. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Victor stood. Get some sleep, Claire. There's a guest suite prepared for you. Clean clothes, hot shower, anything you need. She stood on unsteady legs, her limbs heavy. Thank you again. I mean it. He gave a small nod, his expression unreadable. Good night. A stewardess guided her down a corridor of warm wood and soft lighting. As she walked away, Victor remained standing, his arms crossed loosely, staring out into the rain. There were few things in life he didn't understand. Markets. Strategy. Power. But the way his gaze had been drawn toward that single flash of orange in a vast, raging sea, that still left him wondering. She could have been anyone. But she wasn't. She was Claire Wallace. And she had just stepped uninvited, unexpected, into his carefully constructed world. Chapter 3, Survivor's Story. Claire woke to silence. For a moment, she didn't move, unsure if it was a dream, if she was still drifting in the ocean, her skin pruned and salt-bitten, her heart clawing for survival. But the softness beneath her told another story. A bed. A real bed. The mattress was plush, the sheets smooth and cool against her skin. And when she finally opened her eyes, she was met with the filtered glow of sunlight behind sheer curtains that billowed gently in the breeze. She was alive. The realization came not as a relief, but as a strange weight, like waking from a nightmare and remembering the horror was real. She sat up slowly. The guest suite was a masterpiece of understated luxury, teak floors, creamy furnishings, a soft Persian rug, a dressing table with a tall mirror. Someone had placed a tray on the bedside table, fruit, fresh juice, warm croissants, and a handwritten note. Claire. We'll reach the Maldives by late afternoon. The storm's cleared. Come up to the main deck when you're ready. V. She held the card between her fingers for a moment, then set it down and walked to the tall glass door that led to a private balcony. Stepping outside barefoot, she was met by a vast expanse of calm sea, glittering under a blue sky wiped clean by the storm. The ocean that had tried to swallow her now lay still and glistening, like it had never known violence. Below, the yacht's crew moved with quiet efficiency. She caught sight of Victor near the stern, dressed in white linen and dark sunglasses, speaking to his captain. Claire took a long breath. Then she showered, changed into the clean, simple clothes left for her, soft linen pants and a navy blue blouse, and made her way to the main deck. Victor noticed her before she spoke. He turned, removing his sunglasses, and gave her a short nod. Morning. Afternoon, actually, she replied with a faint smile. I didn't mean to sleep so long. You needed it, he said simply. She hesitated, then stepped beside him. The sunlight warmed her skin, and the salt air curled through her drying hair. How do you feel? He asked. Better than I should. Her fingers clenched the railing. But I keep replaying it. The way the yacht tilted. The screams. Then the silence. I thought I was going to die. Victor didn't interrupt. He waited. Claire exhaled. I'm not sure how long I floated. I remember the sky getting darker. At some point, I stopped trying to yell. It was just, keep breathing. Don't panic. Stay upright. That life vest was the only reason I made it. Because you were afraid of water, he said quietly. She gave a rueful nod. Ever since I was a kid. Pools, oceans, it all scared me. So when I got on that yacht, even though everyone else was dressed up, drinking champagne, I kept that ridiculous orange vest on. People laughed. Said I looked like an overgrown child. She paused, her eyes distant. They're all gone now, aren't they? His silence was answer enough. She turned to him, her voice raw. I didn't even know most of their names. I met the couple who invited me on the beach 2 days ago. We had drinks, talked work, small talk. They were nice. Casual. Said there'd be music, snorkeling, free wine. I thought, why not? I was only going to be on the island for a week. Which island? Victor asked. Fihandhu, she replied. Tiny place, all eco resorts. I booked a week off work just to disconnect. I'm in marketing, New York. I run digital campaigns for a mid-size tech company. No one ever really takes vacation, but I'd earned the time. You came alone, he asked. She nodded. First solo trip in years. I thought I needed space to think. Figure out what's next. But now. I don't know. She looked at him again. Why were you out here? Victor's gaze drifted across the horizon. Escaping a different kind of storm. She raised a brow, intrigued. I spend most of my year making deals, dodging cameras, building empires, he said. I thought a solo trip through the islands might offer clarity. Silence. Peace. Did it? She asked. His eyes flicked back to her. Not exactly. Their eyes held. The wind stirred Claire's hair, and she tucked it behind her ear. I still can't believe you saw me, she murmured. I was just a speck in the ocean. You weren't, he said. You were a shadow against the water. Just enough light to catch. I don't know why I looked when I did, but I did. Claire felt something shift in her chest, an invisible thread pulling between them. She wasn't imagining it. Gratitude, yes, but something else was stirring. Something unspoken. I never expected to owe my life to a stranger, she said softly. And I never expected to find one drifting in the middle of the ocean, he replied. A quiet moment passed between them, unforced and strange in its intimacy. Then Victor stepped back. I've spoken to the authorities. They've dispatched search crews around the reef, but by now. Claire nodded slowly. The weight of survivor's guilt settled on her shoulders like a second skin. I'll get you back to Fihandhu as soon as we dock, Victor said. We'll coordinate with the hotel, the embassy, get you everything you need. She looked up. Thank you, Victor. For everything. I don't even know you, but you've been. You don't have to know someone to be human, he said quietly. She felt her throat tighten. He turned and walked toward the upper deck, leaving Claire standing alone beneath the sun-drenched sky, suspended between two worlds. The one she barely escaped. And the one she'd just stepped into. Chapter 4, Unplanned Detour. By nightfall, the storm had surrendered to a peaceful horizon. The sky was painted in velvet blues and deep oranges, scattered with the first stars. The Celestia glided smoothly through the darkening waters, the storm damage behind them and calm seas ahead. Claire stood at the edge of the aft deck, wrapped in a long shawl someone had given her, watching the last hints of sunlight dip below the ocean's edge. It was hard to believe this was the same ocean that had tried to consume her barely a day ago. Now it looked almost apologetic, innocent even. Victor approached from behind, silent as always. She didn't have to turn to know it was him. His presence had a weight to it, not oppressive, but steady, magnetic. I thought you might want to know, he said. The weather's made it impossible to get back to Fihandhu right now. The harbors are flooded. They've grounded transport until further notice. She turned toward him, her brow furrowed. So. I'm stranded. For now, he confirmed. But I'm heading farther south, to an island resort in the Maldives. We'll be there in less than a day. She blinked. The Maldives. Wait, you're just going to take me with you? Yes. Just like that. No hesitation. No second guessing. She crossed her arms, slightly unnerved by his certainty. You don't know me, Victor. You pulled me out of the water, and I'm grateful, more than I can ever say, but that doesn't mean you're responsible for me. I'm not doing it out of responsibility, he said calmly. You're not ready to be on your own, not yet. I'm going to the island anyway. It's private, secure, and has the resources to help you recover and contact the embassy, the hotel, whoever you need. Once the harbors reopen, I'll send someone to retrieve your things, assuming anything's left. Claire looked away, her eyes catching the reflection of the moon on the water. This isn't real. What isn't? She let out a shaky laugh. This. All of this. Yesterday I was sipping champagne on a rented catamaran with strangers. Now I'm on a billionaire's private yacht en route to the Maldives like some surreal fever dream. Victor gave her a look she couldn't quite read, somewhere between amusement and sympathy. You've had a shock, Claire. You're allowed to feel disoriented. She nodded, then hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. He said it so firmly, so plainly, she believed him. Besides, if roles were reversed, would you leave me floating out there? No, she said quickly, without thinking. Then let me offer the same courtesy. Claire fell silent. The truth was, she didn't have a better option. Her passport was at the bottom of the ocean. Her phone was gone. Her shoes, her only pair, had been borrowed from the yacht's stewardess. There was no transportation, no contact with the outside world, and no home until she got back to New York. Until then, she was in limbo. Victor gestured toward the lounge behind them. Come. Eat something. You haven't had a proper meal since before the accident. She followed him inside, where the dining room shimmered with warm light and elegant restraint. The table had been set for two, nothing extravagant, but polished and thoughtful. Crystal glasses. White china. Silver cutlery. A small glass bowl of orchids in the center. Claire took her seat slowly. Across from her, Victor sat like a man comfortable with control, but not showy about it. There was grace in his ease, but it didn't come from arrogance. It came from certainty. Dinner was sea bass grilled with herbs, truffle risotto, and warm flatbread. Claire barely touched the wine, but the food grounded her. She hadn't realized how hollow her stomach felt until the first bite warmed her from the inside out. For a while, they ate in silence. Then Claire spoke. You really live like this? Yachts, islands, flying halfway across the world on a whim. I live between countries, mostly, he said, leaning back. I own companies, real estate, data firms, a shipping fleet. My father left the foundation, old money, but I built the rest. For better or worse. Claire tilted her head. That sounds lonely. Victor smiled, just slightly. Sometimes. But solitude and loneliness aren't the same. No, she agreed. One's a choice. The other feels like punishment. He watched her closely. Which one are you in now? She didn't answer right away. Somewhere in between. They sat in silence again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Claire studied him in the candlelight, his strong jaw, the way he carried his success like a well-fitted coat, not a trophy. She realized that beneath the money, the presence, the mystique, there was a man still seeking something. Maybe that's why he'd seen her in the water. Maybe he'd been looking all along. After dinner, Claire excused herself and stepped out onto the deck. The stars were out now in full force, glittering like polished glass strewn across velvet. The sea whispered below. Victor joined her a few minutes later, holding 2 mugs of mint tea. He handed her one without a word. She took it, grateful. Thank you. Again. He sipped his tea, then looked at her. You don't have to keep thanking me. This isn't charity, Claire. It's instinct. You were in danger. I could help. So I did. She searched his face. Is that how you approach everything in life? With instinct? No. Just the important things. The air between them grew heavier, not uncomfortable, but charged. Claire looked away first. They stood together in silence, watching the sea, the stars, the line where the dark water met the infinite sky. Claire didn't know it then, but that detour to the Maldives, a stop dictated by circumstance and weather, would soon become the most transformative chapter of her life. She wasn't just being taken to safety. She was being taken towards something neither of them yet understood. Chapter 5, Getting to Know Claire. By the time the Celestia began to slow near the Maldivian archipelago, the ocean had turned a still, radiant shade of blue, broken only by the occasional flash of silver fish and the distant call of seabirds. The sky stretched overhead in a brilliant dome, unmarred by a single cloud. It was paradise. Claire leaned over the polished railing on the upper deck, her fingers curling around the warm metal, her eyes wide with quiet disbelief. After everything, the storm, the rescue, the night of questions, she was still standing. Still breathing. Still afloat. And now, sailing into something she hadn't planned for, guided by a man who had every reason to drop her off and disappear, but hadn't. She heard him before she saw him. Victor's voice, low and even, speaking to a crew member in rapid-fire French. Something about docking protocols. Even his language had precision. Everything about him did. When he stepped up beside her, she didn't turn. She just asked, "Are we close?" "We'll be at the island in an hour," he said. "Private dock. No press. You'll be safe there." Claire glanced at him. "Is that a common concern for you?" "The press?" Victor gave a short, dry laugh. "Unfortunately." He looked out at the sea, and for a moment Claire let herself observe him without filter. The way he stood, rooted, commanding, the light breeze tugging at his linen shirt. There was something effortless about him, but nothing about Victor Ambrose was accidental. That much she'd already sensed. She sipped the orange juice he'd handed her earlier and then tilted her head. "You said you built your empire on your own. What exactly do you do?" He glanced at her, his lips quirking in the barest ghost of a smile. "You want the short version or the real one?" "I've got an hour," she replied. Victor folded his arms, leaning his hip against the rail. "My father was in oil. European refineries. The kind of wealth that came with old paintings and ancestral homes. When he died, I inherited the board seat and his fortune. But I hated it. I didn't want to sit in mahogany rooms with men twice my age, clinking glasses and pretending the world hadn't changed." Claire raised an eyebrow. "So you rebelled with a yacht?" "I rebelled with data," he said. "I started a tech security firm when I was 25. Sold it to a private investor 3 years later and used the profit to invest in logistics, ports, cargo, transit technology. Eventually I acquired controlling stakes in the companies that moved things for the world, food, oil, medicine. If it crosses an ocean, chances are I have a stake in it." Claire's jaw dropped a little. "So, you own the sea?" Victor smirked. "Not quite. But I do understand it." She whistled softly. "And here I thought marketing was stressful." "You work in marketing?" he asked, genuinely interested. Claire nodded. Yeah. Digital strategy. I manage global campaigns for a tech company back in New York. Mostly product launches, rebrands, that sort of thing. High speed, high pressure, low sleep. Why vacation here? He asked. Why now? She hesitated, then shrugged. Honestly. Burnout. The kind where you're not even sure what you're chasing anymore. I hadn't taken a real break in years. Everyone said I should go somewhere serene. Quiet. So I booked a last-minute flight, packed a few dresses, and told myself I'd spend a week on an island learning how to be still. She gave him a look of irony. Didn't exactly go as planned. No, he said. But maybe it went exactly as it needed to. Their eyes met again. Something unspoken passed between them, something warm, something alive. Claire looked away first, her voice softer. What about you? Why this trip? Victor was quiet for a moment, as though weighing whether or not to tell her. Then he said, it's been a hard year. I lost a close friend. Betrayal, really. Someone I trusted more than I should have. And after the dust settled, I realized I hadn't taken a moment to breathe in years. So I got on this yacht and told no one where I was going. Not even my board. You needed silence, she said. He nodded. And space. Claire leaned her elbows on the railing. Funny how two strangers end up floating in the same silence. Not so funny, Victor murmured. Maybe just necessary. Claire's heart gave a small, unexpected flutter. The yacht began to slow, the engines humming low beneath their feet. Ahead, the island emerged like a dream, white sand curving into perfect turquoise, bungalows dotting the water like pearls on silk. Palm trees swayed lazily along the shoreline. The kind of place postcards couldn't do justice. Victor turned to her. We'll dock in 15. You'll have a suite. Private. Anything you need, just ask. Claire hesitated. Victor, I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. I can pay. You won't, he said simply. But I rescued you. I'm not going to abandon you on the shore and wish you luck. You're staying. That's final. His tone wasn't harsh. It was solid. Like the way a door closes behind you, not to trap you, but to keep you safe. Claire gave in with a small sigh. Okay. But you have to let me at least say thank you without interrupting. He smiled for the first time, a real smile, slow and slightly crooked. Fair enough. As the yacht approached the jetty, a small crew waited to greet them, no cameras, no reporters, just discreet staff who bowed slightly and gestured toward the villa that would be hers. Claire stepped off the Celestia and onto the dock. The boards were warm beneath her feet, the air fragrant with salt and frangipani. She glanced back once. Victor was still on the yacht, speaking to the concierge, half turned toward her. And for a moment, as the breeze caught her hair and the sea glittered behind her, Claire Wallace wondered if her life had just veered off course, not by accident, but by fate. Chapter 6, The Spark. The villa was everything Claire had imagined the Maldives to be, serene, secluded, impossibly beautiful. Nestled just above the shallow blue waters, her private overwater bungalow stood on elegant wooden stilts. The interior was a blend of white linen, pale driftwood, and floor-to-ceiling windows that opened onto an endless canvas of ocean and sky. The sound of water lapping beneath the floorboards was a lullaby she hadn't known she needed. Still, Claire didn't rest much that first day. She moved slowly, her body still carrying the trauma of being tossed into the sea, her mind still looping through the chaos of the sinking yacht. But there was also an undercurrent she couldn't explain, a strange, electric awareness of him. Victor. It was the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The way he stood near her without crowding her. There was no pressure in his presence, but there was weight, gravity. A sense that he was always thinking, always watching. Not possessive, not controlling, just quietly alert, like a man used to reading the world before it moved. And something about the way he spoke to her, not as if she was fragile or broken, but with calm, measured respect, felt like a salve over every raw nerve. She hadn't expected to notice him like that. She hadn't expected to feel anything. But the spark was there, unspoken, flickering quietly between them. That evening, after she'd rested and showered and slipped into one of the airy white sundresses the staff had thoughtfully provided, she stepped out onto the veranda overlooking the sea. The sun was beginning to set, casting the ocean in soft gold. A knock came at the villa door. Victor stood there in tailored linen trousers and a pale grey shirt rolled to the elbows. In one hand, he held a single gardenia. "You left the yacht without saying goodbye," he said. Claire smiled in spite of herself. "I thought we'd covered everything." "We haven't," he said, offering the flower. "Dinner." She took it, the bloom fragrant in her hands. "Are you always this persistent?" "Only when I'm curious." "And what exactly are you curious about?" He didn't answer, but his eyes said it all. They dined at a private pavilion on the beach, just the two of them. The sun slid beneath the water in a blaze of color, and soft lanterns swayed in the gentle breeze. The staff moved quietly, serving grilled prawns, mango salad, and chilled white wine that caught the candlelight like liquid gold. Conversation flowed easily, at first, light and playful. Victor told her stories about sailing off the coasts of Morocco and Sicily. Claire shared the time she accidentally sent a corporate rebrand deck to the wrong client, and it ended up going viral for all the wrong reasons. They laughed, for real this time. And somewhere between the second glass of wine and the final spoonful of coconut cream tart, something shifted. He leaned forward, his voice quiet but direct. "When was the last time you let someone take care of you?" Claire blinked. The question struck deeper than she expected. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's not something I'm good at." "You don't have to be good at it," he said. "You just have to stop fighting it." She looked at him, really looked at him, and suddenly the quiet tension between them no longer felt theoretical. It was real. Palpable. Her pulse responded before she could stop it. Victor didn't reach for her. He didn't press. He just watched her, his gaze heavy with invitation, but not assumption. Claire stood slowly, the breeze catching her dress. "Thank you for dinner." "You're welcome," he said, rising too. She turned to go. Then paused. "Would you stay for a bit?" On the veranda. He nodded once. "Yes." Back at the villa, they sat on two lounges beneath the stars, a bottle of wine between them. The night was warm, the scent of salt and gardenia in the air, the hush of waves all around. Claire curled her legs under her, watching the starlight flicker on the water. "Is it strange that I don't feel afraid anymore?" she asked. "No," Victor said. "You survived something that should have broken you. Fear is a different language after that." She turned to face him. "You keep surprising me." His eyes met hers. "I haven't even started." He said it so quietly, so assuredly, that she couldn't stop the flush that crept up her chest. When he stood, she followed. They lingered at the doorway. Then, slowly, he reached out, just his fingers, brushing her wrist, a whisper of contact. Claire didn't pull away. Her voice was low. This isn't supposed to happen. I know. I came here to forget my life. Not start a new one. I'm not asking you to. She looked up at him. Then what are you asking? His hand rose, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Nothing. Not yet. For a long, breathless moment, they stood inches apart. And then, gently, he stepped back. Good night, Claire. She stared at the closed door long after he left. Because whatever had sparked between them that night, it wasn't just chemistry. It was the beginning of something she couldn't name yet. Something undeniable.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and wild theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and steamy romance, the next story is always one scandal away.